Good afternoon on this Friday, September 12th. I'm Yumna Naufal. These are today's headlines. French President François Hollande brings humanitarian aid to Iraq a day after a move by Arab states to back U.S.-led fight against the Islamic State group. Islamic State fighters in Iraq and Syria now have about 20,000 to 32,000 fighters on the ground, according to the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, much higher than a previous estimate of 10,000. And European Ambassador to Lebanon, Angelina Ehrhorst, meets with Prime Minister Tamam Salam at the Grand Sarai to express condolences for the victims of Al-Sil. French President François Hollande is in Iraq to show support for Baghdad's conflict against the Islamic State group, which has seized large parts of the country in recent months. Hollande's aircraft carrying about 15 tons of humanitarian aid set to be delivered to the Kurdish capital of Erbil landed in Baghdad this morning. France is preparing to take part in possible U.S.-led airstrike against the armed group, which has been supplying arms to Kurdish forces fighting Islamic State fighters since August, and has also been flying in humanitarian supplies to help civilians affected by the conflict. The latest aid supply is said to be delivered to Erbil following talks between Hollande and his Iraqi counterpart Fuad Massoum, Parliament Speaker Salim Jubouri, and Prime Minister Haidar al-Abadi. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry arrived in Ankara, Turkey, for talks aimed at also building a coalition against the Islamic State. A visit that comes after Turkey said it would not allow its air bases to be used for strikes on the extremists. The United States signed up Arab allies to a coordinated military campaign against ISIS fighters, a major step in building regional support for President Barack Obama's plan to strike both sides of the Syrian-Iraqi frontier. After talks in Saudi Arabia's summer capital, Jeddah, Kerry won backing from 10 Arab countries: Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, and 6 Gulf states, including Qatar and Saudi Arabia. The Islamic State fighters in Iraq and Syria now have about 20,000 to 32,000 fighters on the ground. This is according to the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, a higher estimate than was previously stated of just 10,000. Among those in Syria are 15,000 foreign fighters, including 2,000 Westerners. The figures were revealed one day after President Barack Obama pledged to expand an offensive against the Islamic State group fighters, a plan which foresees new airstrikes against the group in Syria, expanded attacks in Iraq, and new support for Iraqi government forces. The Australian government has elevated its terrorism threat level to the second highest warning in response to the perceived domestic threat posed by Islamic State movement supporters. Prime Minister Tony Abbott announced the increase from medium to high on a 4-tier scale on the advice of the Australian Security Intelligence Organization. The domestic spy agency's Director General David Irvine said that terrorist threat levels had been rising in Australia over the past year, particularly in recent months, due in part to Australians joining the Islamic State to fight in Syria and Iraq. A Syrian delegation met with Lebanese forces leader Samir Jaja to seek shelter for Iraqi Christians who have been displaced by the advance of Islamist militants. We asked Lebanese forces leaders help to facilitate the reception of Iraqi refugees, especially after the great tragedy that occurred in the Nineveh Plains through the displacement of about 120,000 Christians, said Father Musa, the assistant to Syriac Catholic Archbishop Basilius George. Musa said some of those refugees headed to the Kurdistan region while others came to Lebanon. He also said the Syriacs want the Lebanese government to look into their plight and facilitate their entry at Beirut's airport like all visitors coming to the country. Musa said Jaja showed willingness to help. European Ambassador to Lebanon Angelina Ehrhorst met with Prime Minister Tamam Salam at the Grand Sarai today to express condolences for the victims of the families of Al-Sil clashes and to show support for the Lebanese armed forces.
We had the ambassadors of the member states of the European Union had a very good meeting this morning with Prime Minister Tamam Salam. As you know, we do this on a regular basis. And we thought, particularly now, given the situation in Lebanon, the many concerns the country has for the moment, it was very good that we got together and that we also got the messaging from Prime Minister Salam We, the ambassadors, we first expressed our sincere condolences to the families of the victims in Arsal, those injured, and we share the concerns about all the events, the terrorist attacks today that took place, and we have expressed our full support for the government, for the Lebanese armed forces, for the security forces to find a solution, a united solution to this crisis. This is important. We see that all these efforts are being made, and we have expressed our full support of all the member states to Prime Minister Salam and his government at this point in time. There are many challenges. We are very aware of them. Of course, Lebanon has been so warmly receiving almost 1.2 million refugees today. It's the highest number of refugees per capita in the world, in this country. And as you know, we always, my colleagues, myself, we keep on saying it, and we join those in the forces who say Lebanon needs assistance, Lebanon needs full support in facing these challenges. On the refugee side, security front, also economically. The country is in dire need of creating jobs for the people, getting the economy going, and providing for as much as possible opportunities for young graduates and others, old and young, to find jobs and to get the life going. This is very, very important. You know, these are the messages we have been passing all the time as a European Union, but we also do give the financial support needed, ongoing financial support today in Lebanon from the European Union and the member states is up to €2 billion currently ongoing. That means grant money, that means loans, and we want to see that this money is been put to the best use, the most efficient use, and has real results for the people, all the people living in Lebanon. But in all of that, our key call is a key priority today for the country is the election of a new president. We think this is very important. You know, we have been saying this. It is really of utmost importance for the people of Lebanon, for the members of parliament, to get together to elect a new president for this country, to show that there is a united response to all the challenges.
Coming up next, the IMF says that the impact of the Ebola outbreak will cut growth in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. Stay with us for more after these messages. Welcome back. You're watching the 4:20 o'clock news on Future TV. Maronite Patriarch Shadadai says he discussed with U.S. President Barack Obama the issues of the presidency and supporting the Lebanese army, as the American leader stressed the importance of deterring the terrorist threat against Lebanon. In remarks to LBC television after he met with Obama, along with the patriarchs of the Middle East, Shadadai said the U.S. president promised him to protect Lebanon from the repercussions of everything that is happening in the region, revealing that talks tackle the stalled presidential vote and military support for the Lebanese army. The patriarch said he sensed that Obama had Lebanon among his concerns and that he realizes how much the ruthless Islamic State group is a threat to the region. Regional conflicts necessitate the abolition of political sectarianism in the Arab world, according to Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri. He says, quote, "Previously we had called for the elimination of political sectarianism in the country, but in the serious events and developments that we are witnessing today, abolition of political sectarianism in all the Arab world has become necessary." He said this to a delegation from the Union of Arab Dentists. He said the core issue these days appears to have shifted from the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to the Arabs, stirring up rivalry and inter-Muslim fighting. The International Monetary Fund says that the impact of the Ebola outbreak will cut growth in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, raising the financing needs between $100 and $130 million each. We have to cut this short to go live to the Special Tribunal for Lebanon.
Lebanon is now in session.
تنعقد الآن جلسة للمحكمة الخاصة بلبنان.
Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir. تفضلوا بالجلوس.
قاضي ليتيري، أرجو من موظفة قلم المحكمة استدعاء القضية. موظفة قلم المحكمة. تعقد المحكمة الخاصة بلبنان جلسة علنية في قضية المحكمة الخاصة بلبنان في قضية صديق المحكمة للادعاء ضد شركة أخبار بيروت شين ميم لام وإبراهيم محمد الأمين، قضية رقم STL 1406. القاضي ليتيري: صباح الخير جميعا. أود الإشارة بداية إلى أن صديق المحكمة للادعاء يشارك في هذه الإجراءات اليوم عبر نظام المؤتمرات المتلفزة من الولايات المتحدة وتحديدا من مدينة دنفر، وأنها